Logan Paul says he wants to fight Conor McGregor, and I'm about to give you some full details of this particular matter at hand. For one, you also have to understand he has a wrestling background, which in a way lends himself to having this particular confidence in taking on Conor McGregor in an MMA fight. Also, you got to take into consideration this guy has also fought Floyd Mayweather in a boxing ring. Now, you can argue it was an exhibition, but nonetheless, this is a resume that he also wants under his plate. MMA, Conor McGregor, boxing, Floyd Mayweather. On top of that, in pro wrestling, maybe Roman Reigns. He has took on Roman Reigns and will probably take on Cody Rhodes sometime in the near future, considering the trajectory and the popularity that they both have. And by the way, I've mentioned in the previous content in this particular channel how pro wrestling is now becoming a big main staple in the mainstream world of America, around the world, and people that used to love watching wrestling in the 80s and 90s. And why is that? For one in particular, it's because of Logan Paul and among other names that are part of the list. Obviously, he's a big factor in a big piece of that whole entire puzzle, but nonetheless, he is a major contributor to that particular brand. And not only that, you look at the canvas of the WWE, it has Prime on it all throughout WrestleMania. At ringside, all these Prime drinks were set up ringside to either be used as a weapon, as a prop, and everything in between that had to deal with the show in order for them to just further promote the Prime Energy drink. But fighting Conor McGregor, even if you are the size of Logan Paul and the athleticism and the attributes that he possesses, in all quite honesty, is really going to be a difficult task. And I'm going to tell you why. First, I told you all the glamorous side of this particular matchup and the contribution that pro wrestling is now sort of giving to the mainstream pop culture world. Well, now I'm going to talk to you about the breakdowns and the technical aspects of Logan Paul fighting Conor McGregor. Well, you got to ask yourself, right? Can Logan Paul box? Yes, he can. Because we've seen it. We've seen him outbox Dillon Danis. The problem is, can he kick? And that's something that we really don't know much about Logan Paul. Now, in some recent videos that I had seen online surfacing, was Anthony Joshua sort of throwing kicks, right? Practicing kicks and whatnot. I don't know how old the footage is. I do know there was a video of him a couple of years ago in Abu Dhabi kicking a bag. But in this particular video that I saw with Anthony Joshua, he was kicking a Tide pad with somebody holding the pads for him. And I noticed something about Anthony Joshua's kicks, right? And by the way, this all relates to Logan Paul going into MMA and fighting Conor McGregor, or just really fighting anybody. But I'm going to reveal to you later on who I think he should fight in MMA. But for now, let's concentrate on Anthony Joshua throwing kicks, right? So the way that he threw kicks was very similar to what I've normally seen guys that came from boxing coming into MMA or kickboxing do, which is what? When you throw a kick, usually you swing your arm back in the same leg, the same side of the leg that you're throwing the kick. Anthony Joshua didn't do any of that. He may have tried to attempt like a small stint of it, but not fully commit to the way where you have to swing your arm back when you're throwing the kick. Now, why is that? Obviously, the habit of boxing sort of plays into that, because in boxing, you're constantly told to keep your hands up like this all the time, right? Hands up all the time. But now you're throwing a kick, it's a little bit different. Now, can throwing a kick leave you vulnerable when it comes to swinging like that? And I always wondered that, right? Even till this day, with all the years that I've done Muay Thai, Taekwondo, MMA, and all of the above, I always wondered if it leaves you vulnerable. But one thing, rest assured, is that you have to either put your hands up straight away in order for you to garner yourself some sort of defense, but straight away you also have to generate power, right? So when you're swinging that arm back, it's similar to when you're sprinting, right? You're using your arm motion to basically propel your hips all the way down to your legs in order to generate all that power. So that's one thing that I noticed with Anthony Joshua throwing kicks. Now, would Logan Paul sort of have these awkward looking kicks? Obviously, yes, because he's done every type of combat sport there is, if you want to consider pro wrestling a combat sport. But he's done boxing, he's done wrestling growing up, and he's done jiu-jitsu. He's trained jiu-jitsu over the years, and you've seen videos of him, let's say, rolling around with Paulo Costa. And by the way, a lot of people that saw that video, they said to themselves, hey, you know what? Logan Paul looks pretty legit in these videos. And for one, in all honesty, I'd have to agree with them. Obviously, he has the body type, he has the athleticism, and not only that, I think that he has, well, the intelligence to at least pick it up. Because here's another thing a lot of people don't consider about MMA. You got to have a little bit of intelligence. But here's also another thing that I think is important in MMA that not a lot of people talk about. And again, I'm not here to ask people who are aspiring MMA fighters to commit immoral infractions of any kind. But I got to tell you, I think having a bit of a sociopathic mentality really lends itself positively to high performance in mixed martial arts. Because I got to tell you, there were a few times when I've sparred with some of my training partners over the years, right, where I hesitated. In other words, I didn't go too hard at them, and for good reason. Why am I going to hurt somebody that I train with? But if I ever went into competition and I went in there and competed, it was balls to the wall. I was out to hurt this person. Like, I was out to really unalive them and put them on the ground, okay, for really the most politically correct terms that I could describe. But again, when you're in there, you're supposed to be that. You're supposed to be a psycho. You're supposed to be a person that is going to be relenting in terms of the damage that you're going to inflict on your opponent. Logan Paul has that. But the question is, can he be that person that can take on somebody like Conor McGregor, even with the size advantage? And here's the thing. Will Conor McGregor even try to attempt in entertaining this particular fight? And where did I get this from, by the way? I saw this on Logan Paul's podcast just days before WrestleMania, where him and Triple H were talking. And basically, TKO, the owner of both WWE and the UFC, can absolutely make this happen. But will they make it happen? It's quite a risk. Imagine Conor McGregor getting beat, yes, by a bigger guy, yes, by a very strong and athletic human being, but at the same time, somebody who's debuting in MMA, and could you imagine the level of shock that it's going to cause in the world that he came into MMA beating a former double champion in Conor McGregor with very too little, no MMA experience. And I don't think that the TKO company wants to risk that. But it is a fun fight to sort of speculate, which is why I made this video and probably made it the headline. However, I'm going to talk to you now within the 9-minute mark of who I think Logan Paul should fight in MMA. Should we wait for the 9-minute mark before I tell you who that is? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it should be Dillon Danis. You want to know why I think Dillon Danis should be the one to fight Conor McGregor? They've already fought in boxing. Right now, Dillon Danis is facing a lawsuit against his girlfriend, Nina, right? Because obviously in their fight, or the lead up to the fight, Dillon Danis was posting all types of incriminating pictures of Nina. And when I mean incriminating, I don't mean by the law. I mean incriminating by terms of you looking like an absolute harem to the world, okay? And that's me putting it lightly and politically correctly, okay? It didn't look good for Nina, so it's not looking good for Logan Paul either, because guess what? In this world of professional fighting, there's an honor code, and sort of an honor culture, which you don't do this. But Logan Paul is proceeding to allow Nina to do it. Why? Well, he says that he's not the one that's doing it, but at the same time, you also have to ask yourself, who is the one that is controlling everything behind the scenes? Now, all of this is speculation. We don't know. Perhaps maybe Logan Paul is trying to sway her away from these actions. But the reality is that none of that is happening, because on the side of Dillon Danis, he's still going on with the lawsuit and potentially facing bankruptcy. So Dillon Danis said, hey, you know what? Let's settle this, meaning that we will settle the lawsuit as long as you fight me in MMA. Now, isn't that a sweet deal? Isn't that a fair deal, right? Considering that, okay, you're going to sue him anyway, so let's just have a settlement, but let's also have an MMA fight, which will create even more money than we did in the first boxing fight. Now, that remains to be seen if that is what's going to happen, or if that is what Logan Paul is going to do. But once again, I think that the way that the things are going right now, I just think that Logan Paul may not fight Conor McGregor, but there is a higher chance that he'll fight Dillon Danis in MMA. However, the lawsuit, I think, is really what's hurting Logan Paul's reputation in terms of what the normal common man is looking at in this particular instance. Because you're suing Dillon Danis, okay? And a lot of fighters may not like Dillon Danis. As a matter of fact, a lot don't. Many people have jumped Dillon Danis outside of competition, punched him, beat him up, as you've seen what happened with Khabib, as you've seen what happened with Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor, as you've seen with the likes of many people in the game, attacking him over and over again, whether it's online or whether it's in person. For whatever reason, Dillon Danis really provokes the rage in the most calmest of men, including Khabib, maybe even Anthony Taylor as well. I know Anthony Taylor likes to play around, he likes to joke, and he likes to banter, but the reality is he's a very friendly guy. But also, you got to understand, Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor comes from Southern California, home of gangbanging, right? So that means that, you know, if he'll get down on some fade. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is that's not the case here. The case is that in this particular instance, what's happening is, unfortunately, Dillon Danis is now getting the support of all the people in the fight game, because he's getting sued by a guy who, by the way, is an outsider. Now, yes, we could say Logan Paul has fighting experience. We can welcome him into the club of the guys that actually train, the guys that actually compete, and things of that nature. But you're stepping out of line in that particular instance of the honor culture that we respect, which is what? We just don't sue other people, especially if you are a person that is in close proximity of being able to fight him. It's one thing if, let's say, a heavyweight like Verdum went and threw a boomerang at Colby Covington, right? There's a differentiation in weight there, and fights that will never happen in that particular instance, right? And again, a lot of people disagreed with Colby Covington in those actions, including myself. But that's a fight that's never going to happen because of the weight discrepancy. With Logan Paul and Dillon Danis, they already fought in boxing, and they could very well fight in MMA so long as the stars align. So that is all that I have for this particular content when it comes to Dillon Danis, Logan Paul, and potentially fighting in MMA, and in particular Conor McGregor, which, by the way, who himself is now busy with his own right in getting ready for Michael Chandler and whatever date that is. But for now, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon in the near future with more content to come, inshallah.